I would like to invite the audience to come a little bit closer so that there is a good interaction, and I would also like to ask you to be active in the discussion. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining. We had a nice talk, preparatory talk the other day on the prospects of offshore wind and the role of the ports in developing and achieving the goals set by each of the Baltic states. And I would like to ask each and everybody of you to have a brief. We learned about briefness the other panel about your idea, your conclusion as to how your port is ready for its role in the rollout of offshore wind and the landing of the energy.
If I may start,
yes.
Liepāja port is as ready as offshore wind construction in Baltic seas. Yeah, so as in previous discussions probably has been repeated numerous times that new projects are like really not moving forward. Just a few are starting, and so it's, if we spoke 2 years ago that projects will start to build soon, yeah, so it's few years has passed and it's not yet happening, and it's being delayed and postponed for a while. But good things takes time. Good things takes time, and time is needed also for preparation work. And we have spent this time very much for actually doing this preparation. So we have done quite concepts, and we have had agreements with our investors that how to actually build the port. Yeah, so if there's a project, in 3 years' time we are ready to service construction of offshore wind ports. But we have gone even deeper about this, because we look at Liepāja port not only as for construction of offshore farms, but also for energy. So what to do with electricity that will be produced in the offshore? So it's SAF fuel manufacturing, hydrogen, Baltic German interconnection, and projects like that. So we are accumulating like a package of energy projects. Yeah? So all are in some different stages, different levels of readiness. So technical documentation is being prepared, environmental assessments being prepared. So it is going to take some time to start execution of them.
Yeah, by the way, also congrats with this morning's MOU.
That was one of milestones that had to be completed. That actually describes very well number of things that we are doing that complements it. Yeah.
Igors.
Yes. The same question, similar answer, most probably. Now, basically, we are waiting. And meanwhile, we are waiting. We are keeping ourselves busy with learning on onshore wind farms, trying to ship the oversized structures into the port and on land further ahead. But if you talk about the offshore, then already a couple of years ago, we have made a technical assessment study how the current port infrastructure can be used for offshore and what needs to be done to fully service the offshore industry. And the conclusions are different. One conclusion is that there is a good part in the offshore that we can service already with existing infrastructure in the port. But also another conclusion is that there is definitely a part in the offshore that cannot be serviced on the existing infrastructure because it simply doesn't bear the loads, and it's not fitted for that. So we did make a technical feasibility on a potential development, how to service during the installation, and how it could look like. But it takes a lot of investment, and as we see that there is not that much offshore wind farms under development or potentially under development, so we are waiting a little bit. But as colleague from Liepāja already mentioned, there is a number of things that we can do besides that and do as well after the offshore is installed. Let's say for the operations and maintenance, we have already dedicated a special site in the port, very close to the exit of the port or entrance to the port, how you view it, to be ready to service the offshore industry in operations and maintenance level after it has been built. So, and of course the energy hub, every port will talk about energy hub because usually the energy from the offshore comes somewhere and steps its foot on the land. So we have dedicated a site and signed the necessary agreements with the state grid company to bring the cable into the on land in our port area. So there are a number of activities, but maybe not to talk for all the 1 hour. I will let the possibility for other ports as well to mention something. Thanks.
Ansis.
Yeah. Okay. We in Riga, we are taking risks and going ahead into development of necessary infrastructure for renewable and also offshore wind necessary port infrastructure. Our focus and strategy was based that one thing what is missing, if you look around Europe for the coming future, for offshore wind and wind industry to develop, is dedicated port infrastructure, which again needs new areas. So that means that new, quite big areas in order to, doesn't matter, it's a marshalling installation or manufacturing, but you still need quite a large areas for operational necessities for those who will do the business. And that is something which is pretty scarce, also around the Baltic shores and Baltic ports. That was one strategic direction. Another one was, of course, related that critical manufacturing needs to be brought back to Europe from elsewhere, including Far East and China. In our view, of course, also wind turbine and wind industry component manufacturing parts are those critical ones. And that was the base. So we defined the place, we defined the space, we gathered quite a large volume of different, analyzed quite large volume of information also together with the consultants, understanding what is possible and what is not possible, also learning new things. Our strategy, so we are going ahead with a technical project and construction of the site with a view of landing potential manufacturers of different offshore wind and renewable component manufacturers. For time being, we are not looking into, so we have also analyzed our advantages, disadvantages, as we are situated in the Gulf. Mm-hmm. It's a bit aside from the main shores of the Baltic Sea, and also if looking towards potential projects, offshore wind projects in the Baltic Sea, so they are mostly on the main coast, and of course everything around installation, the distance and the cost of installation vessel is high, so that distance plays a role. In the manufacturing part, so that's not so crucial, because then the market is not just the Baltic Sea, but most probably including also central part and the projects in the central part of the Europe, North Sea, etc. So that is one part, but of course as a port we're looking towards renewables and understanding also that port already for quite time is not just about the classic cargo and shifting classic cargos, but it's also about energy transition, meaning that looking towards what happens about the energy storage, what happens about the hydrogen. Riga most probably no, but not for time being, but I know many ports are looking also towards the data centers where the main data cables are coming onshore. Also this is quite a large, I think, industry where the ports will and are active.
Thank you, Margus. Margus, so how is it in Tallinn?
Yes, we are 100% ready. You probably know that we have concluded the construction of the marshalling quay in Paldiski South Harbour, which is then the first in the eastern side of the Baltics. And in February, we already had the first ship mooring there. This was this time onshore wind details for one of the parks in Latvia, actually. But we are working every day to have the first offshore clients there. We have 310-meter long quay with a backyard of 10 hectares and additionally 30 hectares on the close area of the quay, which is very well connected with the quay. And I hope I will have some good news during the first half of the year, also for the first offshore client.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
I would like to also extend the scope from the Baltic area to, let's say, the European theater. We have seen the publication of the EU wind port strategy. Sorry, EU port strategy. The essence of the port strategy is that also wind energy and offshore energy would become, let's say, an integral part of the functionality of ports. Do you see that back in practical suggestions by the Commission? And if so, how would you, let's say, implement that in your port? My impression is that many of the ports are quite ready. I was wondering, by the way, how much tonnage do you have as a carrying capacity per square meter in Tallinn? Because you were asking also about mentioning the carrying capacity. We have
20 tons per square.
Right.
And we can increase that in the areas where needed up to 50.
Yeah. So, yeah, because what we see is an enlargement of the scale of the elements of the wind turbines up to 15 megawatts currently and up. So we're talking about 2,500 tons for the, let's say, the towers or the foundations. So, yeah, that would make it really necessary. But about the EU port strategy, do you think it's, as a document, it will be something which we could work on as ports community? Because I'm also looking from our side, from the North Sea side, as to what is possible there. And I can tell you from our side, we are not that positive about, hence my leading question to you. Maybe Ansis, yeah.
For me?
Because also you have a role in the Baltic Ports Organization. I was wondering how this has landed in that organization.
Okay, yeah, I have another, Baltic Ports Organization, but I have another hat of European Seaports Organization.
ESPO?
ESPO, and of course as ESPO, we were also very actively involved in a process of development of European ports strategy. That was an initiative by European Commission and current Commissioner on Transport and Tourism, Mr. Tzitzikostas. And it went also in parallel with maritime industry strategy, which slightly were more focused towards the shipping, but still. The trick, I think, with European port strategy is that it is not a legislative or mandatory document. We could call it, as those who remember, it's like a white paper or something like that. That was part of these discussions and decisions at the very beginning, that it shouldn't increase more regulatory framework, so it should, at the end of the day, simplify things. And on the other hand, it should give a guidance to European port industry where at the end of the day we want to move and what is critical, and at another side the legislative part of it, or legislator, the European Commission, then can look on the existing legislative framework to be adapted accordingly, and also the magic question, the investments and finance for the coming years, because one strategy without the finance is just a paper. So how it's gonna go, it's hard to say. I think it's a bit of new initiative. I think as many compromises, some may be good things, some were missed out at the end of the day, but all in all, I think many of ports around European shores were involved, so many organizations were involved in it. Most of it, I think, relates to main focus areas as the same emission trading schemes, for instance, many things related to the trade towards crossing the oceans, meaning that how to not to spoil the business with the EU legislative framework in order for, let's say, container operators to move their terminal business operations to north of Africa. And so-called carbon slip, so meaning that generates the money more favorable to build terminals in North Africa rather than in the countries of European Union. But also, if you look towards renewables, I think the big segment in the strategy is related to renewables and renewables in ports, because our definition at DESPO also was that the ports are those hubs where one way or another renewables will land ashore or again will be transported elsewhere. What we need to take out of it is that, of course, not, and I always say it, not every port will become an energy hub. That's also absurd, because different ports has different purposes. Some are more multifunctional, some are very purpose-made. And that means that not everything will happen everywhere. But of course, the main things, if you want to go away from the fossil, it's also clear that not, I mean, electricity in the simple form will not be able to be transported. That means that there will be media, and it doesn't matter. It will be hydrogen, methanol, ammonia, which are more known substances, at least on the table. But in order to transport energy, it still needs to be transported, and most probably also on the ships. And that means that the ports will be involved. And then everything related to different new activities, as I already mentioned, the data centers, underwater cables, and of course, military dimension, which is, I would say, quite new, in the port strategy, because it was more always at the national or NATO country level, but now it will come very much into the port business, and most probably also somehow will be related to the critical infrastructure and critical segments of the energy.
Thank you. This triggers me, Uldis. You were also talking about the multifunctionality of the port. If you're talking about, let's say, military applications, I'm immediately thinking about the 1.5% or the 5% defense expenditures. Do you see a possibility, perhaps, for, let's say, invoking that 1.5% in infrastructure developments in the port?
5%. Latvia has set target and actually achieving it 5%. But let's say we can look at history. Yeah? So Soviet times, Liepāja port, that was one big part. The biggest part of it was Soviet Navy base. And any commercial activities that was happening, there were two large fishing companies employing each one of them several thousand people. Yeah, so fishing and Navy was working very well hand in hand in one port. Yeah. Currently, NATO has planned to build NATO infrastructure in our port, so a new base for Latvian Navy and also for NATO Navy. 160 million are allocated already for that. Meanwhile, we have enough space to build infrastructure for offshore wind construction. So it's historically we have large port areas that is still not developed. Yes, so that's why we're working on both directions. And then again, so if you compare offshore, it's the same basically as a fishing. Yes, so that's possibility for local guys. Now we know that there's no much fish in Baltic Sea, but guys who went fishing can study in local maritime college and actually learn maritime professions that are related to offshore and actually work in Baltic Sea, so not going far away from home and bringing money back to the city and to the region. Yeah, so let's say we see that let's say, port is just a place, a location from where you can do businesses that can benefit the local community. And so, how to say, strategies can be written, and strategies tend to how to say, show best time scenarios, but the real life actually is saying something else. Yeah? So I was reading the strategy, but I don't remember what was told about the Strait of Hormuz there. Which page did it said? Yeah, so nothing probably. And then we see that such a geopolitical situations, what happen around, can change quite quickly attitude and actually targets of what has to be done, where money has to be concentrated in maybe next few months or next year. Yeah, and so that's why we have to be ready with, we have to have very high readiness for all our projects and get them implemented very quickly, because momentum can come at very moment. And we have seen last 5 years, it's like every year, things happen even within weeks and months period. Yeah. So multifunctionality, I think, is a key. Readiness is a second thing, and how to say, be brave enough, maybe think ahead of strategies that are approved officially in Brussels, let's say.
Brussels.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is a magic word, of course. Igor, so you were mentioning also the investments being necessary in the ports, and in connection with the rollout of offshore wind farms. Mm-hmm. Do you have the impression that, because my impression from the outside, let's say from the North Sea region, is looking at the Baltic Sea, is that the state of readiness of ports as compared to the state of readiness in the countries around the North Sea is relatively better than the ports around the North Sea, because we are ringing the alarm bells for our ports, because we feel that there's not enough capacity yet to create the momentum for the rollout of wind farms. But what about, let's say, the balance, because the port is always in the center of the balance between the rollout of the offshore wind and the offtake. So how do you, as a port operator, think about the development of the market situation as such? Yes. Are you optimistic about this?
As always.
As always optimistic.
Very optimistic about a lot of things, because without that you cannot achieve anything, actually. But ports in Latvia particularly currently face a very interesting, I would say, situation where on one hand we have a huge overcapacity, and we easily could swallow tens of millions of tons of cargo to be transshipped. But the thing is that Latvia doesn't produce so much cargo, so mainly it was transit before. On the other hand, even having this overcapacity of infrastructure, the infrastructure is not sufficient in a way it is needed for the emerging industries like offshore, and offshore is being one of them. I mean, hydrogen or methanol. Ammonia, you can basically, we do have a terminal in Ventspils that used to handle ammonia, and theoretically it could be reopened to handle it again, but you need additional investments. And the big question always is whether you can justify the investments with in the current market, or who takes the risk. Port of Riga is very brave. They took a risk on one hand as well for production industry, as I understand, and that is that's very good. Yep. On the other hand, Ventspils, Liepāja, Klaipēda, even Paldiski, all of these ports are roughly 100-150 kilometers away from each other. So if every port will install or create a offshore wind servicing harbor, most probably there will be overcapacity in this field as well. So in this sense, whether this is the direction where to go, yes, it will develop. There will be a lot of business in different fields, not only as marshalling and installation harbors. Whether there is currently enough projects to justify the investments in all of these ports, I would say no. And we don't see in the pipeline that it will come. So if there is some port who is optimistic enough to take this risk and to go ahead, to find the right partners to set up the concept, who is doing what, and create this, I think it will evolve and it will go ahead with or without the EU port strategy. Yeah. On the sports level, I think this is the most important thing, whether you are capable of combine all these players and to bring it to the market.
But if you describe the situation as you did, so with the uncertainties surrounding the investment and a potential overcapacity in the ports, Margus, how did you get to an investment agreement, the financing agreement in Tallinn?
Yeah, we actually took the risk because it's we as you probably know, we're a public company, so it's coming from our it's our capex, and we even don't take the loan on a project. It's based on our balance sheet basically. But then again, you know, everything that Igor's mentioned is correct. On the other hand, if we look at the future, then European Commission says that there could be up to 80 gigawatts of offshore wind in the Baltic Sea. Currently, yes, there is only place where something is happening is Poland. There will probably be, in the near future, a few projects in Finland. We all know what happened in Sweden, so there is nothing happening right now. Baltic states, I'm very pessimistic at the moment, at least. And the problem mainly is that there is no. And I was just coming from the presentation of in downstairs where they talked about the banking of the projects, and basically everything is there. What you are missing is a clear vision from the state, so CFD or PPA or something like that, but in the Baltic states it's not there.
I heard there was a meeting in Tallinn the other day where CFD was compared to toxic, whereas it's the trend.
I don't understand why is that, because if you look at places where things are happening, then mostly or in 99% of the cases it's CFD that makes it happen. So I don't think we have to think out of, or the politicians shouldn't think out of any new things. Just see what is working. Otherwise, even in Poland, you know, and you know, copy if it's working. But yeah, if we then look at how many ports we have, then we have currently like Rønne, we have Mukran, we have an excellent port in Świnoujście. There is something happening in Gdansk, and there is something happening in Klaipėda, and then we have my port Paldiski. And again, even now, I understand Świnoujście is doing good, Rønne is doing good, Mukran is doing good. I hope my first offshore contract will happen during the first half of this year. So if something starts to develop, we are very quickly out of ports again.
Which brings me, Ansis, also to with you.
Sorry, Ansis also. Riga has also the investors.
Yes, it's fine. Yeah.
But it brings me also to the point of, let's say, the public-private interaction, and also, let's say, in the international context, what is being done with, let's say, the cooperation with, among the member states around the Baltic Sea basin, what is happening with NSEC in the North Sea, You have the Marienborg Declaration 2023 and subsequent meetings. What I find interesting is the term overcapacity comes quite regularly by, and my question would be that what kind of coordination is there among the coastal states to coordinate and specialize functions in the servicing of the developing offshore wind industry, or is it everybody for himself and creating? I'm exaggerating, of course, or is there a plan?
As far as I know, most probably there is no plan. But the question, of course, on coordination among, even if you look on a regional stage at the European, like the Baltics, like North Sea, like Mediterranean, most probably it's a good point and good direction. The question is, of course, more at the political level how to do it. Because in reality, whenever we talk also about the offshore wind, even whatever energy segment that is, so it sort of covers quite large different segments of different industries. Because in many cases, the developers are very related to the electricity, the grid. Then the ports are looking more towards so how to move the things, how to manufacture them, and how to move. Another side is that necessity for energy and electricity is then driven by manufacturing or production of something different, which we need to do in Europe, like whatever the car industry, for instance, and then I don't know, electric car. What's going to happen with electric cars? What's going to happen with demand for electricity? What happens to the grids and the connections? Because that's also a big point. And in reality, I don't think there is kind of the seamless coordination of all of this. And that's why even if there would be a coordination between the ports and port infrastructure, who is doing what, most probably that would be kind of the nice how effectively to use resources. On the other hand, also how the parks and how the wind projects or energy projects are developing is a bit at the energy business side. So I think in ideal world it's kind of good direction. In reality, I'm not very positive it's gonna happen. It's like nice electricity price. Most probably everyone would like in the Europe, but unfortunately that's not the case.
If you ask about plan, then I think we all have lived in countries that had a plan, so that collapsed, unfortunately.
I didn't want to mention that.
Yeah, but so the Soviet Union was planning everything, and then it didn't work out. Yeah, but if we talk about plan, yeah, so I would look a little bit different. So we talk about port, how ports can help to offshore industry. But we are actually doing opposite. We are trying to help to create demand for port services. And one particular example, so we just signed and booked space in territory of our Liepāja Special Economic Zone for large substation to do possible interconnection between Baltics and Germany, electrical cable. Yeah, so it means Germany and Europe is, let's say, there's demand for electricity. So if there's interconnection, so it means there will be possibility to build offshore parks in Baltic Sea. Yeah, and so there will be demand for services of the port. Yeah, so if we have space for interconnector, if we have space for also that was signed today, hydrogen link via Baltic Sea, where also Latvian, Lithuanian, Estonian hydrogen plants can be feeding in hydrogen that is produced from green energy. So we are creating also this possibility to create supply and ensure somebody is demand in some other countries, and then we can build offshore parks, and then port infrastructure will be needed. If you look at today's situation, we cannot consume electricity that would be produced by offshore park if we just build it. Yeah? So we need to think, and then the word plan actually comes into place. But it is not like 100% coordinated that somebody would sit at the drawing board, take a, I don't know, European Union map. Okay, no. We have made a drawing, agreed, and this is what next 10, 15 years will happen. Yeah? So that would be no point of this conference. That would be quite boring. Yeah? We could just see in reports have it been completed or not. But we are every year we are doing some new ideas, brainstorms, and seeing what will actually happen first. So let's say therefore we see, and our investors see quite big potential, and just have to come together all the bits and puzzles in one place in the right time.
Yeah. Margus, you wanted to say?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that it's maybe a little bit too early to cooperate on this, and the market, because everybody, the market is not there yet, and everybody will find their niche in together with the market, because we are not enemies. We know each other, all of us, for 10 years at least, and we meet at the conferences, we meet at the BPO, at Espoo. And we exchange information and so on, and yeah, sometimes we are competing, we are after the same clients sometimes, but it's I would say a friendly competition. But just to explain, monopiles in Baltics, now they have the Baltic Towers factory in Poland there. So probably there is no point of having another one at least next 10 years around the Baltics. So they have taken that part. So okay, we should, not run for the monopiles anymore. Maybe in the future, in 5, 10 years, but right now it should be something else. So the market will make it show, can we cooperate and should we cooperate, or is still everybody, by himself?
Yeah. Ansis.
Yeah, no, I would say that the biggest risk, but that most probably is very small, that I don't know, in a few years it's been discovered something absolutely new, how we can get energy, and then full prospect of wind energy becomes redundant because it's too complicated, it's too expensive, and okay, that's it. But most probably in reality this industry segment will develop, also the parks will develop, and also all of you and the participants in the conference, it shows how broad the industry is. So it's in simple words, we're always talking whenever wind energy, it's like blades, nacelles, towers, and monopiles, but it's much more around that. So there are many also niche industry segments which are needed in order all that thing to be produced. And as Margus clearly said, there are in the component segment, of course, definitely there are things which are simply scalable. That means that there's no point for the newcomer to build a new factory and trying to compete to get into the market. So it's easier to upscale one or another factory elsewhere already existing, working in Europe. But there are segments which are not upscalable, meaning that any growth in the market will need new space and new manufacturing space, and that is this potential and option. And also, if we talk about the first movers risk, yes, that's there. But on the other hand, also the time is crucial, because also manufacturers, they are looking on the development on the market, and when it's needed, if you're not there, you are not there. So that's it. So you lost your momentum.
Yeah. If I can add a quick comment, and also, the infrastructure is very funny. Whatever you built yesterday is cheap today. So this is also something that when you are moving faster, then maybe your prices in the future will be better.
So you have a comparative advantage.
Yeah.
I was also thinking, because there's also discussion in the Netherlands about the whole life cycle. I know it's way too early to talk about it, but decommissioning as a function, is that on the horizon or just over the horizon?
Yes, I think it's absolutely clear topic already now, because many of early turbines most probably come to the end of their industrial functioning life. And then is, of course, the big question now with recycling economy or circular economy, what to do about it. And again, I think that is an inevitable topic, which of course develops different directions, but also as a ports, most probably that's a niche. Because the same with oil rigs and oil mining, the old platforms, the commissioning of the platforms, and that's also quite of the big niche. I think the big question, at least definitely for Latvia, is always, and it's elsewhere in Europe, it's a regulatory framework and permitting on the environmental side. Because when you produce its turbine, when you bring it for the commissioning, it's a waste, and that comes with absolutely different set of regulatory and permitting procedures.
Just have a look at if there are questions from the audience. Or
yes, we do have one question online. If this has already sort of been touched upon already in the discussion, but maybe you wish to elaborate a little bit more. So the question online is, which port in the Baltic countries will be the first completely ready as a marshalling port for offshore wind? It will be Lithuania, Estonia, or Latvia.
No, not all at once.
Yeah, I mean, we are ready. And we are doing onshore now, but like I said, hopefully we will have a soon announcement about the offshore too.
Perhaps you want to elaborate why is one port enough, or do we need more than?
I think I said that's we definitely will need more in the future. It depends on how the market is developing. And again, if we talk about the components, then this could be also the North Sea that is supplied from the Baltics.
Uldis.
Yeah, I would love to say that the port of Liepāja will be first marshalling port ready that is located in center of Baltic Sea, So, because for marshalling ports, I think location is also important, and I'm very happy that Tallinn is actually commissioning, has 20th of May, I think, was opening, but you already
we have an
accepting
official
cars, yeah. You're already accepting vessels, but yes, I think to get projects in Baltic Sea done in the amount that is set in strategies, and I hope strategies are getting filled. Yeah, so it's not going to be enough with one port, yeah, and also location is important, and that's why I think Liepāja should be first in good location.
Are you still open for accepting bets? Or we are...
Yeah, but then you also have to include it in a wider regional scale. But I have also a question, looking also at the time, a question pertaining to the supply chain and let's say the servicing of supply chain companies willing to invest and willing to settle in your respective ports. I'm thinking, a bit teasing, but I'm thinking about what happened in Scotland with the offer of the Chinese OEM to start producing equipment there. How do you see a potential influence or interest, if there is already interest from Chinese parties? I would be interested, of course, but what if Chinese companies would come and say, "Hey, we want to Mingyang, we want to build here a factory of wind power turbines of 20 megawatts." What if that would happen? Do you already have a scenario for that?
That's classified.
But for this excellent audience,
yeah. If I can, I don't think the problem is the factory. Factories are very welcome. The problem is that where you're going to install them. I mean, we all know there was a German auction also where one of the German or the European developers were wanting to get the equipments from China, but it was banned by the ministry. So investments are welcome, but the state has to say, if this is okay with them, if it's installed in Europe.
Yeah, I think it's a bit of political question because slightly there's a difference how you define strategic interests nationally across different EU countries. Then, of course, is this European grid where with appropriate volume of investment you still should apply for cross-check or permit from the European Commission if it comes from the said countries, including China. But national, of course, it differs, and I would say, of course, it's always a bit of it's not a bit, but it's very political. I would say that turbines or the wind energy most probably will be a segment which is on strategic importance, and also what Margus said, if it also relates to the wind parks here in the Baltic, then most probably that will be no. On the investment side, of course, investments are welcomed.
Igors, are you willing to declassify your...
No, both gentlemen already discussed. Well, there has been interest from Chinese producers, definitely, and from several, I would say, in last recent years. But well, in this sense, the port is not the problem or the bottleneck. The other factors are, and that's why it maybe doesn't make much sense to discuss about whether ports or this or that. It's different in a political level.
Uldis, a question, but it also relates to the other three gentlemen. If I were to ask you, what would your message be to ports around the North Sea? What kind of special experience you would like to share with our ports around the North Sea, given your experiences in the early development stages of the port capacities? What are you satisfied with, and are there also warning signs where you say, well, watch out for this or that?
Well, for us from Baltic states, teach something or advise something to North Sea ports, that's quite challenging question, because I think North Sea ports has the biggest experience, and Danish ports has the biggest experience that actually we are learning from. So we have studied examples of Ronne, Esbjerg and other ports to actually develop our concept, and then together with one Northern Euroports, so this concept being developed even more and more. So the large companies with experience in many countries, many regions, many ports, and we have to bring that expertise in to not make mistakes, to not fall on the mistakes that have been done elsewhere, somewhere else. And I think the problems are, let's say, problems or challenges are very similar everywhere. So one thing is that developers are seeing that there's not enough port infrastructure, and it's not enough for their aims. At the same time, developers of offshore parks are not ready to say and sign, yes, I want to book your port infrastructure, and I want it to be ready in 3 or 4 years' time. Then port actually has a document you can go to bank and actually, okay, we start building work. So that's, I would say, if we all in Europe could overcome this problems, that developers can say yes to necessity of port infrastructure and provide this commitment to port, that I think would solve all the questions. But I think that's the same problem in North Sea and Baltic Sea.
Well, it's good that you say that, because speeding up the procedures is a major headache. For instance, the extension of the Port of Rotterdam took 25 years. So if you could do that quicker, and by being very smart at, let's say, the regulatory...
We need 3 years to get from yes to completed quay wall.
Well, there you go.
It's faster than Rotterdam, I see.
Igors, do you have some recommendations?
Well, I mean, ports are so similar and so different at the same time. And therefore, actually, recommendations in one place might not work at all in a different place. It's always case-by-case sensitive. But what we could agree, those are very competent gentlemen, to create some kind of port consulting group and go out and do this consultancy. First of all, learn from Baltic Harbor how you did it, to look at the technicalities and then go on.
So I see a business opportunity here. So.
Yes, definitely.
Ansis, do you have wise comments?
Just a small example. I think it was Southampton, but okay, port in UK, and I was there, and a chief executive was showing around, and there's a place and a land plot. I said, okay, I mean, so we are renting out the land plots and developing and so on. I said, okay, but what is the term of the land lease for this? I said, for this one. So for this one, most probably another 470 something years. I said, what is the total term? Total term was around 900 something years. So where's the lease agreement? I said, most probably in museum. So there's no much what you can what can teach into this direction, because many, of course, has a vast experience in the port business, and particularly also if you talk about Netherlands, like being traders of the world. And I think doing very, very good. And I think the good thing from our side is that we try to do things fast, and that was the part also. I mean, whenever we compare also on offshore wind, I mean, regions normally are much larger than, like, investors looking. They are much larger than just the Baltic Sea. Mm-hmm. So that means that you need to sometimes you need to compare also yourself to Turkey. The labor costs, the capex, the many things like this, and also the logistics. But on the other hand, of course, the timing is crucial. How fast the project can be realized, and in this essence, of course, we slightly compare nationally from country to country in Europe, because the kind of the big investors working globally or internationally, I mean, they come with the consultants. Consultants has brought all the experience starting from Czech Republic to Turkey, Japan, Australia and elsewhere, and so you know the picture, how fast and what is okay and what is not okay. And of course, that is the part of the problematic thing, what could be harmonized in some way, but again, most probably not happen, because of the planning. Everything is not a good plan.
Margus.
Yeah, coming back to the ports of the North Sea, and we're out of time, by the way. but I think the biggest thing that we can do with them is cooperate, and we can see it already now. You know, sometimes when Esberg is full or Rønne is full, there is a chance that we can accommodate some of their details, or components or something like that. So this is something where the cooperation is possible.
Well, with that, dear friends, I thank you very much for your contribution to the panel. I would also like to thank the organizers for giving us the opportunity to discuss port strategy items. And I was delighted to see how vivid the WindWorks is working. So congratulations with that as well. Thank you very much, audience, for your attention.